In this lecture, we are going to review all the movement, that is position, orientation, and rotations that we have learned in the previous lectures. I'm going to try to make a summary and bring to your attention the new rotations that you can do using the camera rotation. First of all, this composition, if you want to follow with me, you can download it from the resources and follow with me. The first thing we want to do is to add a camera, of course. Go to camera. We will add a 35mm camera. That's okay. So I optimized the view here. This is the same comp. I just have been duplicating it. So I have the camera. I open all the transformation for the camera. We have point of interest. That is the point of interest where the camera is supposed to be pointing. We have the position of the camera. And we have the orientation. How is it oriented? And we have the X, Y, Z rotation that we haven't used until now. So we start with the unified tool and we come to the active camera, we click, so the orbit will appear, and if I orbit, you notice the 3 parameters of the position are changing. Okay, that's for the orbit. Then if I right click now, I have the Z tracking. It's only the Z axis that is moving up and down. I will reset. Then if I use the middle button, of course, you could have used C. You notice very well that the point of interest has highlighted and the position has highlighted. So I'm changing here the point of interest and I'm changing the position. Here you are, you can see it, how the point of interest is moving with the position. But of course, the Z is not moving. Okay, I will reset. So that is about the unified tool that you can use here. Fine, cool. To use the back of the camera and start moving it, I need 2 views, the top view and the left view. Each one of them will move is certain parameters from the position. Let's go back to the top view. If I grab the back of the camera, I will notice that the X parameter and the Z parameter are moving when I am in the top view. Please remember that. I will reset. Let's go to the left view. If I grab the back of the camera, you notice the Y and the Z are moving. And that's very important. So you know exactly which view to look at and which view to use when you want to move the Y and the Z and so on. That's why it's extremely important that you optimize at least the left and the top view. Let's go back to the top view. Now we want to use the axis. If I click on an axe, I just click on it and I move the axe. You notice very well that the point of interest and the position are highlighted. And then I'm moving according to the x-axis. I will reset. Now what's apparent here is the z-axis in the top view. I will click on it and move up and down. Doesn't move left and right. Up and down, and you notice that the point of interest is changing and the position is changing. I will reset. Let's go to the left view. In the left view, if I grab the Y and I move it, you see point of interest Y is changing and the Y position is changing. I will reset this one. If I grab the Z axis now, you have the same where the Z point of interest and the Z position is changing. Same as the top view. Let me reset that. Now we'll go back to left or we go back to top. Now, if you don't mind, be a bit attentive. I'm gonna bring the rulers. Take a ruler and put it just above the camera. I will click on the camera. I'm gonna choose the x-axis and click and press Ctrl. You notice that when I press Ctrl, the point of interest has de-highlighted. So it means I'm moving on the x-axis. Actually, I'm not moving only the camera on the x-axis, I'm moving the center of the axis of the camera. So if I release here and I come back and hold the X, press Ctrl, now it is not doing the same thing I was doing because I changed the center of the axis of the camera. I will reset that. So you notice when you press Ctrl, you will be moving on a straight line until you release. If you release, let's say here, now notice you have changed the center of the axis. There is no parameters here that will show. So if I go back to the X is no more straight. I press the control, and now the whole thing has changed. This is something very important you should notice, and something very useful. It means that you can change the center or the position of the center of the three axes of the camera. You notice also when I was using the X and press Control, the point of interest did not change. That was obvious for you because it was dehighlighted. Let me reset. Let's go now to the left view. If I click on the Y, then of course I can move the Y up and down. That's fine. Let's reset. But if I choose the Y and press Control, I will remove the point of interest highlight. It means it's not gonna move. And then I will move on the Y. Notice now the Y-axis is pointing a bit on a certain angle. If I release, go back to the Y and press Control, now it's not gonna do the same movement. This is very important. It can drive you crazy. So please be very attentive about that. It's really a trick that gets a lot of people very confused. I will reset. Now let's use the XYZ rotation. We are on our left view. If you rotate on the X rotation, you notice the camera is rotating using the center of its axis here, or it's rotating, you know, on itself. Then you have the Y rotation. Okay, first let's reset. Then you have the Y rotation. So there are quite some animations that you can do here already. And the Z rotation, of course, is going to rotate the whole composition. Here you are. Now, it's very important that you come here, you use that composition, make your own, put a camera, and try to play with all this, optimize the left and top views, and try to understand exactly how the movement is happening, so you'll be able to, you know, create animations, but you are very clear about what you're doing. Let's move on. We move on. I will reset the camera, go to my top view, and right click camera and create orbit null. So I have the orbit. The camera is already parented to the null object. Let's write it orbit. We change its name, null or null. We open the null object. Let's look at the transformations we can do here. Okay, anchor point, position, and so on. You know all about them. What I'm gonna do is open the position, the anchor point, and the rotations. So I have here position, orientation, rotation, X, Y, Z. Fine. Now you can play with the orientation. Is okay. I'd like you to notice now, instead of rotating on the camera like we were doing, we are going to rotate now on the, by the way, here reset will not work. It will make a lot of problems. So I have to undo. Instead of rotating the camera, that's what we have been doing. If we move the axis or not, it really didn't matter. Let's start by rotating the Y value, the Y rotation. You notice that the rotation anchor point is the anchor point of the null orbit. Now you have created a new orientation of rotation. Notice here only the Y rotation is moving. So now instead of rotating on the axis of the camera like we have been doing all along, we are rotating on the anchor point of the orbit, which is now the point of interest of the camera. And that's pretty interesting, by the way. So this is how you create very smooth animations. Let's try the Z rotation here. It rotates on itself. So we said here we cannot reset because also it will reset the point of interest and it will shift. Then let's go to the front or left view. In the left view, we use the X rotation. You can see it. Actually, the camera now is rotating on its point of interest, which is parented to the orbit anchor. And that's how it's happening. Now you have very many rotations that you can do here, and it's very easy. Using the null to rotate the camera, it's pretty nice and very much used, much more than rotating the camera on its XYZ rotation. But of course, it always depends on what you want to do. Now you have learned almost everything about rotating and positioning the camera using the camera parameters here or attributes, or using the orbit attributes. So what you want to do, please go to After Effects. I hope you were following with me. Move the camera around, put the orbit null, and try to make all the movement possible. It's important that you understand these movements before you start doing animations and even complex animations. Thank you very much for listening.